I am Nahid Kabbani, and this is the Lighthouse for today's viewers. Welcome to our show. Today, uh, I am with you to re- remember 25 years in America, like we celebrate in Access Sacramento 25th anniversary, and we celebrate at Salam Center 25th anniversary. It happened that I have been in America for 25 years. So I thought it's better to shed some light about what I have seen, what I learned, what happened with the Arab American community in America, and what happened in the Arab world around us, to let you know about it. So for this matter, I have our guest. He is not stranger to you. He was here and he has his own show before, and we will talk about those things together. Let's welcome our guest and let him introduce himself.
Thank you, Nahid. My name is Ayad Al Qazzaz, and I'm a professor of sociology at California State University, Sacramento, and I have been teaching for 45 years. I lived over 50 years of my life in this country. I went to graduate schools of Berkeley, and I moved from Berkeley in '69, and I'm here since then. So you are celebrating 25, but I'm celebrating the 50
Double
years.
it.
The 50 years
That's why
anniversary.
you are an expert.
No, I'm not.
What are you teaching?
I teach sociology, and one of the courses which I taught in the past, and I still teach it, is the sociology of the Middle East. It's a quite popular class. I have about 222 students this semester. And on the average, I have about 500 students a year in this course. In the past, I did teach many other courses, including Introduction to Sociology. I taught political sociology, sociology of the family, social institution. But in the last 6 or 7 years, I'm teaching only one class, and that is the sociology of the Middle East. It is quite a basic course. I mean, we talk a little bit about religion, about population, about family, about ethnic communities, about religious community, languages of the Middle East. So it is a basic introduction to the area of the Middle East.
That's wonderful. That's
Thank
why
you.
you are here today to give a class also for our viewers, because we need this kind of information. We're still short of it.
Okay, thank you.
So for me, I was here for 25 years, but since I
Well,
came
that's a long time too, by the way.
Yes.
2.5 decades, to put it differently, or
But
25 years. Yeah.
Since I came, I find out there is no media for Arab community. And that's why sometimes you feel nobody knows about us, and we are alone in the corner because we choose to do, not because the other not coming to us.
Yeah, but I think it goes both way, my own feeling. It is, there are reasons within the community and there are reasons outside the community. And both of them, in my judgment, produce that lack of information. So it is not only us, it's them too. It's both of them.
Yeah, but we think sometimes that the media is not for us, will not let us get involved. But we didn't try that much.
Well, yeah, I agree. But on the other hand, I mean, I'm talking about my own experiences. The general media, the mainstream media, they don't come to you.
Yes.
Especially if they know you have a different perspective, a different point of view. I mean, it happened with me, and I can tell you all sorts of examples with Channel 6, with NBC, with CNN. The moment they know that you have a different perspective and they don't like, they don't come back to you. I will never forget when after the invasion of Iraq, Channel 6, and I'm talking about the news hour. They called me up, the guy, I think either he's from New York or from Washington, D.C., I don't remember. He called me up after the incident of bombing the United Nations building in Baghdad. He wanted to find out my view on the subject matter, if I'm available to talk about it. I told him, yes, I'm available to talk about it. He said, but well, we have to know what you are going to say, generally speaking. And he asked me a very simple question. Do you think there are foreign elements who are behind the events? And from his perspective, he was talking about the Qaeda. I told him, yeah, there are foreign elements behind what's happening. He said, who are they? I told him, at the top of the list, the U.S. the U.S. Armed Forces. They are the biggest foreign element in that area. The moment he heard what I said, that American forces are the foreign forces, he said, I'll come back to you. And I never heard from him. Then I called him up. I thought, he didn't call me back. He said, sir, we got somebody just came from Iraq, and we thought it is more up to date. But I know why they didn't choose me, because they don't like what I'm going to say. And I can give you all sorts of other examples. Recently it happened with the local news here. What is the name? KCR, whatever. The 1530. They called me up about what happened in Egypt, and I told them, yeah, the event in Egypt organized by the U.S. government with the approval of the U.S. government. They didn't like what I said, and they stopped it, and they want somewhere else. Yeah. So, I mean, the question, I would agree that we are part of the problem. We are part of the problem in varieties of ways. Number one, we don't encourage our kid to specialize in journalism or TV production or something of this sort. These are the lowest in term priority. We want our kids, whether men and women, to be engineer and to be physician. But these jobs, this is waste of time because they don't make good living, and it's very hard to find a good job, et cetera, et cetera. And therefore, we don't have too many specialists in this field, whether it's television production, whether journalism, or something related to this field who are of Arab origin. We have a few, but not too many. And until and unless we have an army of skilled people, it's going to be very, very difficult. But I have to say, too, these people who are specialized in this field, when they work in these organizations, they don't have much influence. Either they are afraid or they don't want to interfere or. But that's one of the problems. We don't have too many skilled people. The second thing, most of us are not well educated on our own issue. And the best example is my student. I mean, in the class which I have this semester, 220, I have about 10 of them of Middle Eastern origin, some of them Palestinians, some of them Arab from other Arab country. And when we ask questions, when I ask questions in the class, they don't know what's really going on. They really don't know what they're going. And if they do, it is a very general knowledge, deep knowledge, and they don't show any interest. I mean, I have problem with some of them this semester. They were copying, et cetera, et cetera. And from here to here, the class is GE, and we don't really pay attention to it. This is not our major. Why should you spend time to? Why did you take the course? So this is another issue, is that not only we don't specialize in these jobs or these skills, is that most of us are not educated on our own issue. And that is the worst thing, by the way. If you are not educated about your own issue, then you are not going to be able to present yourself in the right way.
Absolutely.
I mean, I still see some people change their name. Why you change your name? I mean, there's a guy, his name is Ibrahim, his name is Ibrahim. Why you are Ibrahim? I thought, why don't you educate the other people about it and be proud of these things? But I want to mix, and I don't want people to say this and that and all of the above and all that. So they are not proud of themselves. That's a very problem. If you are not very well confident in yourself, and if you are not proud of yourself, proud of your name, proud of your heritage, proud of your culture, proud of your values, etc., you are not going to get involved, and you are not going to do anything. And I mean, I can talk about it forever, by the way, but let me make one more point, and then we'll talk about whatever you have in mind, is that most of them, they are not only ignorant about their own issue, they are ignorant about American society. And they don't know how the political system runs in this country. They don't understand this is a group politics, not an individual politics. You have to become part of an organization. And when you are part of a group, you have to coalesce, which means you have to compromise. So these habits are not with us. And our parents, I mean, my generation, they don't encourage their kids to get involved. They don't want. They want them to be an engineer. They want to be a doctor. They don't want them to get involved in all this business. So these are some of the issue. But as I said, it is really two-way street. Partly is us, as I explained to you. I gave you 3, 4 factors. But partly the media at large, they don't give you the same space like to other people. And that's a problem. They tend to be very selective, and they want to select people who support the general point of view in this country. And I gave you one example about what happened with Channel 6, but there are many other examples, honestly. It happened with me personally.
That's in general, add to within the 25 years what
Yes,
I'm here. At least we were Arab community, now Arab communities.
That's a problem.
It's become harder and harder to talk to each other or to understand the situation, the background of it.
But that is partly because of what happened over there too. You see, one of the things which some people disagree with me, in the 60s we have a leader, and that leader is Jamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt. Regardless of what is his leadership is all about, but he was the one. When he speaks, people listen, whether American or European or anybody else. Now we don't have such a figure because there's nobody who can speak in the name of all these countries.
It was unusual figure.
But also that galvanized the community to get together. And when you study the Arab Student Association, used to be very powerful in this country in the 60s and early 70s, because as you pointed out, which is a very important point, that's the time Arabism started emerging in this, in this country. And therefore, we have a number of organizations who represent that trend, like the AAUG, the Arab American University Graduate, or the Arab American Institute, or the ADC, et cetera, et cetera. These organizations had been weakened. Some of them disappeared. And some of them are still surviving, but they are not really as strong as before. But what you said is very important. And that's partly of what is going over there. You see, I remember when the US invaded Iraq, all of a sudden we have a new interesting slogan: Jordan first, Egypt first, Syria first, but there is no Arabism. By the way, this has happened in the 90s and becoming very obvious after the Iraqi occupation by the American forces. And that trend is now reflected on this community. So today, we have Jordanian Association, we have Palestinian Association, we have Iraqi Association, we have Egyptian Association, and on and on and on. And these organizations, no, it's gone. They hardly talk to each other. They are a personal relationship, but as a joint groups, they work together. It's very hard. And these organizations, by the way, the danger of these organizations, like the Jordanian or the Lebanese, the government over there interfere in the organization, whether it's Lebanon or Jordan or Iraq, etc., and they try to direct it in a different direction. And in the process, you see the tension over there is reflected in the tension between these organizations. And this is very dangerous, by the way.
That's what I find out, and that's what I was talking about since I came in. Just because I heard one comment in Kuwait when we were there, in meeting, the first meeting for the Arab family. They used to say at that meeting, the Palestinian and the Arab. Why that wow? I asked this question, because they have a story to tell. So what? They are Arab. Since that time, that wow, that and in between each part of the Arab countries. And I said, you don't have to be reflected to that area. We have to have new identity. Nobody thinks.
But this is now becoming more and more stronger since then. And I really believe the death of Nasser was a huge, blow for the over there as well as in this country.
And
but on the other hand, and this is why it is not the Americans as well as European and others are encouraging this trend, by the way.
Let's talk about this point after the break.
Okay, you have a break already?
Yes, okay. We'll have a break and we'll be back soon.
Okay.
You're watching The Lighthouse for today's viewers, brought to you by oneworldforyou.org.
Okay, I think the topic was too hot to stop it. Now we'll find out with Dr. Qazzaz what is going on around the same topic.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say, I mean, it's not only the death of Nasser was a blow to Arab nationalism. Unfortunately, the foreign power, particularly the US and of course Europe, but for that matter, even Russia or other, they were all against that idea that Arabism, nationalism, coming together, working together. So they were encouraging these separationist tendency throughout the area. And as a result of that, we are a very divided community. We are a very disunited community.
We become.
Well, yeah, no, it's very definitely disunited. And in the process, we become less and less honestly effective. I mean, all of us has personal relationship. All of us has a relationship with American as well as an American. We have a relationship with the Indian, we have a relationship with Chinese, et cetera, et cetera. But these are personal relationships, not necessarily political relationship. And therefore, our impact is really much less. I mean, it's a very sad situation. Let's put it this way, a very sad situation. I mean, over the last 50 years of my life in this country, the Arab community in Sacramento has increased. And increased not a lot, but once upon a time we had maybe 6,000 or 7,000, but today we may have 15,000. Some of these 15,000 have disappeared. These are the people who came to this country at the end of the 19th century or the beginning of the 20th century. Many of these people had assimilated, and their contact and connection with the Arab American community, regardless of their country of origin, is really very minimum because they are fifth generation or sixth generation. Their connection with the Kibbi and Tabbouleh and a little bit of
Arabic
music, and music, and that's it.
Cultural field.
Yeah, but about maybe out of the 15,000, I would say about maybe 8 to 10,000 of them, they still have connection, but that connection with the country and not with the larger Arab community. And many of these people, for varieties of reasons, they are not very active, neither on a social level or a political level or anything else. They're busy, they want to make money. Most of them are busy, they want to make money. And that's all what they care. And they do honestly minimum job of contributing to the community. Why? God knows. I mean, we come from a tradition, we don't encourage contribution. I mean, if we contribute, most of the contribution...
in our culture, in our religion, you go slowly, quietly, and put in the right place whatever it should.
But most of the contribution are religious.
Yeah.
And the political contribution which we made, we want to have immediate return. I mean, the Arab in this community in Sacramento, they do contribute politically. I mean, I know names in the past. Here from Sacramento, they pay a certain amount of money in order to take a picture with the governor or a picture with Clinton. When Clinton visited Sacramento, the guy who sat beside him was of Assyrian origin, and we were told he paid 30 or 40 or 60,000 to sit beside Clinton. But this is all on a personal level, and not on a community level. The Barakat family, I was told, in Stockton paid Davis $200,000, but all on a personal level, not on a community level.
Yeah, we become individuals.
Well, it's all, this is the problem. We don't have commitment to the community. We have a commitment to ourselves, to promote our agenda and to promote ourselves. And this is a problem.
In a way, I don't blame them because they have obligation. There are families behind them to spend money on them. But on the other hand, because we are not involved with the life in America, with the American people also, we become strangers to American for that long years also.
Yep.
Suspicious always look in the face when they look at Arab or Muslim or cover people or whatever, because we are not in the community together. We don't marry.
Well, because we don't, quote unquote, assimilate ourselves in the community. I mean, I hear the stories, but you can substantiate it yourself because you know a little bit more about the inner working of some people who come to this country in the last 5 or 10 years, especially the people in their 50. They, all what they do at home, watch Arabic TV.
Yes, yes, that's disaster.
That means they are not going to get involved. They also, number one, they are going to have very little information about the community which they are living. Number two, they are not going to improve their language. And if you don't improve your language, you are going to have difficulty interacting and communicating with the people. And so when you ask them, who are your friends? They are all, almost 99% of people of Arab origin, and to be more exact, of the country from which he came, whether he's Lebanese or Palestinian or Iraqi or what have you. So that gives you an idea that there's a problem. And this is a very serious problem. I mean, I advocated informally that anybody who come to this country should not watch TV of the country of origin.
Soon, coming soon, coming soon.
No,
if you ask them, what did you hear about the fire next
No,
door,
they
they
don't.
will say, no, where is it?
They were watching
The
Jazeera
Arabic
or...
and, from outside.
yeah.
That's why I'm fighting for 25 years
yeah.
to have some information for us inside America.
Yep, yeah.
And
I mean,
it's
it
coming
is a
soon.
sad story. It's a sad
Yes,
story.
it is sad.
Yeah,
Because not just for language, it's the comfort zone for them to listen and to not think how to learn, how to do, but how they help their kids. Their kids go to school in English.
Yep, yeah, well, and
Where
it's,
are they? They are separated at home.
well,
also.
separated at home, and there's always tension between the kids and the parents. And I was told many times the parents, they don't want to talk in English with their kids because the kids
keep the
may...
Arabic language.
No, because the kid may correct them. And the kid may start laughing at the way their parents use the language. In other words, they want to avoid any embarrassment. And I keep telling them the only way you can learn is that when you start laughing about yourself. And there's nothing wrong if the kids correct you. After all, this is not your native language, and if it is their native language, what's wrong with that? But that's an attitude it has really to change. But that's the function, by the way, of if we have a civic Arab organization who encourage these kind of discussion, who encourage these kind of interaction, but unfortunately we don't have that.
Can
What are
you?
things? What?
Can you start this?
No, I'm at an age I cannot
I'm
start
willing
it.
to do the show with you.
No. I mean, I'm willing to talk about it. I'm willing to come to shows, but I am at an age at 72.
So what?
Well,
Don't
I'll be
say that.
73. I'll be 73.
You will make me look old. I'm not old. I am at the same age, but not old.
Yeah, I know, but I am so I need to take it easy. Whether we like it or not, it doesn't really matter. I mean, there were times I can work 24 hours. Now I can't, but that's the way it is.
No, we don't need 24 hours.
No, but
Make
I
it
know.
10 hours, I will accept it.
No, I mean, the problem with the program, if there are enough volunteers, we'll do it. But if there's no volunteers, it's a huge hassle. It's a huge hassle.
Say yes, we will
No,
manage.
we'll talk about it
Yes,
later.
we will manage.
Okay, anyhow.
So this is a problem really, and we have to have solution for that.
Well,
And media-wise, we find out Access Sacramento can help us to raise our voice. And you know that? You started
no, I know that. Yeah.
Before
yeah,
me.
but I was very lucky when I started the program, by the way. Was lucky because there was a course taught here in the station how to produce a television program for the county, and the county was paying for that class. So the student did a favor for me, and I did favor for them. They were practicing on me, and I was producing the program because of them. That chance came to an end when we lost the financing for that course. And I was hoping that one day maybe the station will do the same thing. Because until I'm telling you what I feel, until you have a sustained volunteerism, it is very difficult. Because I tried to do it later on and didn't last for one semester. And even I asked like state help, and the student really didn't care. The student didn't care. So there is a problem. And in the younger years, yeah, maybe. But now I have to take it easy a little bit.
Yeah, but
So
we
we'll
have,
see.
before take it easy, we have
Yeah.
to take this idea to the new generation to follow up. And first thing, when I came to Access Sacramento, before they know who I am, do you know Professor Qazzaz? Please, 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 can you bring him back? He was here, he was here. My job was to find you.
I tell you, I was here, but I didn't get the volunteers.
Okay, no, we will find
I didn't get the volunteers. I mean, if you get the volunteers, I'll be happy to help you in producing this program.
Yes, I will do my best to bring you back with the idea, because we need the idea.
Well, it doesn't. We can do the same program more regularly, but we'll talk about varieties of issue. But if we don't have volunteers, we are in trouble.
No.
You know what happens?
Don't think about troubles. We'll make it happen.
Anyhow, we'll see. We shall overcome.
Anyway, this is a really important thing, important topic to talk about it, to create shows for American people to understand a little bit about the Arab around them, and for Arab to know how to adjust, how to establish your new life and new home, because it's our home no matter what.
I agree.
If we dream about our countries and there's no other countries except here, that means we waste our life dreaming, not living the reality.
Yep, that's true.
We are here, and we have to be existing, and we have to do something good for our families and for our country, new country. So anyway, we will talk about some other topics after the break. We will be back soon.
OneWorldForYou.org, promoting cultural understanding through the media.
We talk about the Arab community, and we talk about, in general, how they doing in America. But let's have that topic, what you are maybe waiting for, Syria, and what's going on in Syria. Let's Dr. Qazzaz explain this to us.
Well, let me make a couple of comments on Syria, but really the most devastating one from my perspective is that the destiny of Syria, it is not in the hand of Syrian. That we talk about self-determination. Self-determination, it means the people elect their own leaders and they decide their destiny, their future, the direction of the country, etc. But what is going on in Syria today is exactly the opposite. That their destiny, their future is designed by forces outside Syria. And that includes Russia, that includes the US, that includes Hezbollah of Lebanon,
the whole world
that includes Iran, that includes the Gulf country. And the Syrians are paying the price. I mean, Syrians are paying the price. So what kind of a country is going to be? And that's another good question. And my own feeling that Syria, which you know and I know of 4 years ago or 6 years ago or 10 years ago, is going to be very different, regardless when that compromise will be achieved. It is not going to be achieved next month or the month after. The battle is going to continue, and until one of them become a little bit more dominant and whatever it is. But my own feeling that Syria is going to be divided into semi-mini state. Among them is going to be a Kurdish area, which is on the border of Iraq and Turkey. Another one is the Alawite, which is on the east coast, in Ladiqiyya area, Tartus, and in that neighborhood. And then you may have also tension between Halab or Aleppo and Damascus or Dimashq. But what's happening in Syria, it's interesting to bring about the French occupation of Syria in 1920, after the disintegration of the Ottoman Empire. The French at that time, they want to divide Syria into 5 mini-states or even separate countries. Lebanon is one of them, the Druze and the Alawite, and Halab and Dimashq. They succeeded in separating Lebanon from Syria, but they failed in the other parts. And I have a feeling the forces outside Syria, they want to revive that scheme again. And we already seen interesting development when members of the Kurdish community about 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, what I forgot the exact date, declaring that zone is an autonomous zone within Syria. And surprisingly, there's not much really reaction to that declaration. I think the only country which I think they object severely is Turkey. But I didn't see any other reaction from other Arab country or other Middle Eastern country. So that is my vision of Syria, which is very unfortunate. The problem with Syria is going to be how to rebuild what's already been destroyed. The destructions is unbelievable. The destruction in terms of the physical destructions, the destruction in terms of the economy, the network, the industry, or what have you. And there's another more interesting destruction is that the manpower, the skilled power, many of them left the country.
Yeah.
And these are the people who are very much needed to rebuild the country. And I can guarantee you that half of the people who left the country will never go back.
It's not easy.
That's happened with the Iraqi community when they left to Syria and Jordan. Many of them, they don't want to go back.
They left with feet.
Yeah,
How
and
they
some
can
of them
come
are
back.
forced to go back because there is no alternative for them, etc. So this is the tragedy. I was talking to a guy from Jordan, and the guy from Jordan quoted to me an official from Jordan. He said, before the events happened in Syria, Syria economy was ahead of Jordan economy 50 years. Now he said it's the other way around. Jordan economy is ahead of Syria. So the picture is gloomy. The picture is not very encouraging. And I really hope the conflict will be resolved, the sooner the better. Because one more day, more killing, more blood, more destruction.
Yeah.
That's really as simple as that. And I hope people will come to their head and try to compromise about what's going on.
I hope so too.
But we have some people outside Syria, they want to continue that conflict. And they have some hidden agenda in it, and that's as simple as
Some interest in it.
yeah. So
This is
I'm
the
not
problem.
very optimistic. I mean, I was opposed from the very beginning of what's happening in Syria, not because I like Bashar al-Assad. Bashar al-Assad is son of a ditch. I don't care for him. But this is not the way to change the system at the expense of what's happening to the people. And that's what happened in Iraq, by the way. This is not the way to
what
change
is
the system.
different than Iraq?
Saddam is son of a ditch, but this is not the way to destroy the country. I mean, we are the...
It's
we are,
not the way to fix up the problem with other problems.
Well, we are
This is
making
not
it worse.
fixing
We
up,
are making it worse. Because you see, another problem, by the way, which I forgot to mention, is the sectarian tension becoming a serious problem in this country. And by the sectarian, I mean religious, Shia and the Sunni Muslim, but also Islam and Christianity. This is becoming a serious problem. We used to have a very thriving Christian community in Syria and in Iraq. And many of them, they tried to leave the country. Those who find ways, they left already. And those who are still there, they are looking for a way to leave the country. And that is ultimately is not good, because a lot of these people are skilled people, and these countries need them very badly.
Yes, and they are leaving the country to the bad people and the extremist people, which is no way to compromise, to have something in common, to calm down and make it happen.
That's very true.
Which is unbelievable. I grew up in Syria. Syria is my home.
يكون دمشق or حلب حلب
Dimashq.
oh, I thought
My
حلب
daughter-in-law from Halab.
oh I see okay
But I grew up, I left Palestine, I was 7 years old. I grew up in Syria. This is my home. I feel so sad. I lost Palestine, then I'm losing
You are
Syria.
losing Syria,
It
oh,
is
yeah.
too much for me to feel. I see it in my own
Yep,
eyes, in my lifetime. That easy way to destroy history.
yeah well it's very
The
easy
same with Iraq.
yeah
The same. It's
Yeah.
above my.
I mean you can destroy a bridge in 2 minutes
Yeah.
but it will take you 10 years to rebuild
Yes.
it so that gives you an idea
And
of
how
what's
much? How many years to build it up to begin with?
yeah well it take about 10 years to rebuild these bridges it take about 10 years at least but you have to have money you see another issue I mean Iraq have money I mean Iraq is
Syria
swimming
has
with
no
money
debt before.
yeah I know but Syria don't have money like Iraq
Yeah.
I mean the rumor that the Iraqi government get about $15 billion a month that's a lot of money that's because of the oil money not because they are the smart people the government is not that smart but they are getting a lot of money and they are buying people I mean I was talking to one of the professors in the University of Baghdad he said we are now getting paid $3,000 or $4,000 not Iraqi dinar 4,000 this is unheard of in the so they are buying people that way oh yeah corruption everywhere I mean they are corrupt at the high level and corrupt at the middle level and but so Syria doesn't have access to oil money they have oil but they don't that much so it doesn't bring them the same amount of money so how do you build these countries the superpower or the great they are going to have a conference for donor countries and these are just talking but no result they promise to give money but they never deliver and that's the way it is they did that with Afghanistan they did that with Iraq and they did it with the Palestinian and the donors we'll give them but nothing happened so I'm really unfortunately I would say I'm very pessimistic I should be optimistic as a teacher I should be optimistic but the reality doesn't say something different.
There is a difference between the picture and reality.
Definitely, yeah.
And we are involved no matter what. We are either we live here, we are safe here, and we live happily here. But it doesn't mean that whole family comes with us and whole relative comes with us. Our countries are destroyed in front of our eyes.
Oh yes, oh yeah, no.
And to me also, I don't know what we can do as Arab communities in this country.
Well, I tell you, we don't have much resources to begin with, and what we have, it's not used effectively. We don't have organization to help these refugees to begin with. The only institution we have are the mosque and the churches. And both of them, they have objective, whether to Christianize you or to Islamize you or what have you. But even these churches, by the way, when you study all these mosques, all of them are scared for fun. They don't have money. I mean, to operate a mosque, it takes $20,000 a month. So how do you get $20,000? You have to get from volunteers. The same thing with the churches. So we don't have institution, partly because we don't have that history, that experience of building institutions. When we are going to do that, I really have no idea.
We still refuse.
Yeah, well, I mean, because we talked about it. Yeah, we talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the show, that why the community is not involved, why people are not interested in contribution. And these are serious problems, by the way. And hopefully one day things will be changed. We need the generations. Hopefully the new generation who are going to be, who are born in this country, they may learn a little bit about the process of organizing themselves, and hopefully they will move forward with it. Whether it will happen or not, I cannot tell you that.
We'll have a break and we will be back soon. The story has so many ways to talk about it, and Syria in particular has a lot in it. So let's continue talking about Syria with Dr. Qazzaz.
Well, I think I said whatever I want to say about Syria. I do, as I said, I'm very much worried about the future of Syria, worried about the immigrant who left Syria. I mean, there's about 1 million of them in Lebanon. There's 500,000 of them or more in Jordan. There are even hundreds, I don't know how many.
Around us here.
Yeah. You mean what?
In my area, a lot of Iraqi
Oh,
Syrian coming.
Well, Syria will come. It take a while, by the
Yeah.
way. It take a while. Many of them, they are going to Canada, they're going to Europe, etc.
But for sure, there is a big interest from Iran in Syria. What about Iran?
Well, that's an interesting story. Iran is a power in Syria. Iran has a close relationship with Syria for the last 40 years or more. During the Iraqi-Iranian war, Syria aligned itself with Iran against Iraq because a lot of Iranians used to come to Iran and still come to Iran either for religious purpose or for vacation or what have you. So that political alliance is very, very important to Iran. Through Syria, they were able to establish or support Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah's resources, a lot of it come from Iran, and without Syria, they will not be able to receive a lot of the stuff from Iran, whether you talk about especially weapons. They come through Syria. They cannot come through the sea because there are a lot of ISIS try to confiscate the weapons coming through the sea to Hezbollah, etc., etc. So if Syria fall, Hezbollah will be weakened tremendously. And this is why Hezbollah now is fighting their own fight, not the Syrian fight. They are fighting for their own survival. And that's as simple as that. And what is interesting, and that may change also the situation, the new rapprochement between the U.S. and Iran may affect the future of Syria in a positive way for Bashar al-Assad. Because Iran is going to have a big voice in Geneva. And that voice is supporting Bashar rather than the other forces. Now, the rapprochement between Iran and the U.S. surprisingly opposed by two countries, Israel and Saudi Arabia. But Saudi Arabia, as soon as they receive a call from Washington, D.C., they change their mind. They say it's okay. But from my perspective, Israel is opposing the treaty not because they are fearing Iran is going to manufacture a weapon. I don't think so. That's not. But this is one way to blackmail the U.S. To get more aid, more money, and more military. And that's really as simple as that. Because I felt for a long time that the U.S. will never bomb Iran. And I've said that probably in one of your programs. I'm not sure. But I always felt neither Israel nor the U.S. will bomb Iran, because ultimately Iran is going to be a good friend of the U.S. and maybe a good friend of Israel. The Israeli always remember what happened in the good old days when Nebuchadnezzar came to Jerusalem, get the Hebrew people to Babylon and all this business. And then when Cyrus defeated the Babylon, quote unquote, he liberated these hostages. He allowed them to go back. So they remember all this old history. And even in the recent history, there's a lot of dealing between Israel and Iran. It happened in 1982, the Iranian-American affairs, etc. So I don't think, I never felt that Israel will bomb Iran. I never felt the U.S. will bomb Iran, because ultimately they can use Iran to their own purpose. But what's interesting about it, and this is nobody seemed to talk about it, is that how the U.S., and listen to that carefully, and the audience listen to that carefully, how the U.S. made Iran a superpower in that neighborhood. We are we helped Iran to emerge as a superpower in that neighborhood. We defeated Saddam for them, and that's an arch enemy. And we defeated the Taliban. So now they emerge the superpower in that neighborhood. And this treaty, I mean, it's not yet a treaty, but this understanding between the US and Iran is going to enable more and more Iran to be an important superpower in that neighborhood. And in Geneva, they will play a very important role toward the future of Syria. So that is one of the interesting dynamics which we need to watch. And I say, where are the Arabs? Where are the Arabs leaders? You don't hear from them anything.
They are too divided.
Well, they are not only, but they were controlled by the outside forces. I mean, Saudi Arabia is not an independent country. I always talk about Saudi Arabia as part of the US. And even in my classes, I say it's the 51 state on occasion. I mean, this is, where are they? Their destiny is not in their hand. And they are going to pay, because of the division among them, they are going to pay very much for what their mistake of the past. They, the Saudi, are responsible for emerging Iran as a superpower by supporting the invasion of Iraq, by supporting the bombing of 1990 of Iraq. All these Gulf countries are responsible for Iran to emerge as a superpower. And even Syria, because Syria was against Iraq, etc., and all this business. So all these things are going to come to hunt them. Now they are worried about Iran, about the Shia Islam and all that. But you were behind all these things. Many people warn them not to do that, but they care less about what's happening. And I think that's one of the scenarios which we need to watch very carefully. Am I happy with the relationship between Iran and the? Of course I'm happy. I don't want more war. I don't want more conflict. I don't want a nuclear bomb. I don't want any of these business. But the Arabs are going to pay for that. And they're really going to pay that very heavily. The Iraqi government are very happy with what's going on because their connection with Iran is very strong. And remember, in the last election which we have, the Prime Minister, Noor al-Maliki, was basically appointed by the US and Iran. Not by the Iraqi people, by the US and Iran when they came together and they decide, well, we should give him a chance to become the Prime Minister. And I think they will do it again. He will become another Prime Minister for the third term. And he will say, this is the last third term. And then, if he's still alive, he would say 4 years later. And that's the way it is.
Assad will be Assad.
I think Bashar will stay, but he will be in a very weak position. And he will remind me of what Saddam between 1990 and 2003. He will be in a very weak position.
Beginning of the end.
Yeah, it's the beginning of the end, but how long it will be interesting. But the thing to watch, and that's something I cannot really say anything about it right now because I haven't paid attention to. There's supposed to be an election in Syria next year to elect the new president. Whether they will have such an election or not, are they going to postpone it because of the conflict which is taking place or not? And if there's an election, how free is that election? I don't think it's going to be a free election, but they may have an election, etc. So it will be interesting. No, Bashar is going to stay. For how long, I cannot tell you that, but in a very weak position. It could be a year, it could be 2, it could be 3. But
The
he's
family, I guess, no more Assad.
Well, no, but
Is there anyone ready to go?
Well, not yet, not yet. I mean, this guy is still young, and his children are still very young. But don't worry, there will be a lot of Assad who claim the position. But he will stay with us for a while, but in a very weak position, not the way he used to. Not the way he used to.
As long as taking order from outside.
Well, oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the Russians saved him.
100% control.
The Russians saved him. I mean, the trick which they play is fascinating, and the Americans play the tune with the Russian, and that was how he was saved. But he's very smart, I have to say that. The difference between Bashar and Saddam is huge. I mean, I always said, Hafez al-Assad, he's brutal like Saddam, but he knows his limit. Saddam doesn't understand he has limit. Saddam risk. Hafez al-Assad, I'm talking about the father, he doesn't risk. I will never forget, and I cannot pinpoint the date. It was 10 or 12 years ago when there was a huge tension between Turkey and Iran, and Syria. And the Turkish troops were massing on the border, and that's the time when Hafez al-Assad gave the Turks whatever they want. And among them, he gave them the Turkish leader, who was forced to leave and then was captured. And also, they dropped from the textbook in Syria that Alexandrona and Antakya is part of Syria. Now it's no longer discussed in the textbooks of Syria, etc., etc. Bashar, his son, is more or less follow his father. When the Americans were about to bomb, oh, take whatever you want to take. So he gave them the chemical weapon and all this business. And this way he stayed in power. So we have a lot to talk about, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. You are encyclopedia.
No, I'm
And
not.
you can open page after page, and you need show after
No,
show.
no.
So anyway, I know from my heart that the only qualified person talking about those subjects, about Middle East in general, and our relationship as America with the Middle East, our interest also, Professor Ayad Qazzaz. And I promise you, my viewers, I will do my best to let him come back to do his own show, because I am not qualified, and I will call him always to talk about. So let him do his own show, and I will help him to do that. And
Oh, that's a
believe
dream.
me,
That's a dream.
if you can tell that I have this, will edit. Professor Qazzaz, I did
1981.
interview him in Kuwait, 1981. He was visiting Kuwait, and I did interview him in Arabic, and I was talking about the Arab communities in America. 31, 32 years old, and still I will ask him at the end of the show, what is the difference, what happened between that time for the Arab community in America and now? What is your comment?
Oh, you want me to make another? I
Yeah.
saw the show is finished.
Now we will close.
No,
What
no,
do you
no.
want from the Arab community?
Well, I really, I don't expect that much from the Arab community. We already talked about the fact the Arab community now is more divided than ever before. Once upon a time, we say we are Arab. Came from Egypt, but we are Arab. But now we have our own separate organization, separate identity. And that's very dangerous, by the way. And I already said there is not much contact with each one of them. When you have too many organizations, it means the resources are wasted. It means the people who are involved are wasted, et cetera, et cetera.
Divided.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not optimistic at this point in time. On the other hand, I have to say, maybe among the new generation who are born in this country and who are going to be educated about the U.S. politics and how the system is working, they may be the beacon of hope for us, and they may be the fire which may ignite excitement in the community. But this is something we have to wait and see. But other than that, things are not very exciting right now. I mean, you talk, yeah, go ahead.
I hope that tomorrow will be better day.
I hope so. I hope so.
Better
I hope so.
work, and we will
I hope so.
talk positive for next show, but I will wait for your show.
Okay, a deal.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.